Welcome along to Season 3 of Into the Sky, where we soar through the captivating story of the iconic Avro Vulcan XH558. I'm your host, Martin Price, and this season we're bringing you an all-star lineup of guests, a pilot who commanded this magnificent aircraft, the dedicated volunteers preserving her legacy, and the education partners inspiring South Yorkshire's youth and the team shaping XH558's future. Join us as we unravel the rich history of this Cold War titan, discover how she's fueling STEM education, explore how lessons from the past are engineering tomorrow's innovations. From the cockpit to the classroom, Into the Sky bridges generations, proving that XH558's influences reach far beyond the runway. Buckle up for a journey that'll span decades and touch the lives of many. This is more than a podcast, it's a flight through history, innovation and inspiration. Hello, welcome along to another exciting episode with Vulcan to the Sky Trust. Today I'm with the Trust Chief Executive, Marc Walters, and John Barber, who's the Chief Executive of their education partner, Workwise Foundation. Welcome along, gents. How are you today? You both okay?
Good, thank you. A bit chilly, but otherwise all good. It's
great to have you both here, and it's good to have a chat with you. Could you, one of you or both of you, just tell us a little bit about the education program and how you started working together?
The education program, I mean, the Vulcan was incredibly innovative and put Britain at the forefront of aircraft design all them years ago. I mean, if you look at the Vulcan compared to the Avro Lancaster, for an example, there were only 11 years between the first flights of those aircraft yet. Despite the Vulcan's first flight being in 1952, it still looks like a modern-day aircraft. And we use that spirit of innovative thinking and design excellence to inspire young people into STEM-related roles of science, technology, engineering, manufacturing. And we've been working with Workwise, I'm going to say it was pre-2017. It was when we stood in the hangar, wasn't it, John?
It was, Mark, when we first met, I came across I was looking for some space, actually, to hold an event. And somebody had said, you need to go to the hangar and see Vulcan. So yeah, that was the first time we sort of connected, I guess. Probably in terms of working informally together, I suppose it's really been post-pandemic. We did some work beforehand, but in terms of a sort of a really coordinated education program, that sort of really developed over the last three years or so. But like most people, I think that was the first time people see Vulcan, it was like, wow. We work in education, we work with young people. We're a charity, we were set up to inspire young people to think about jobs and careers in engineering and manufacturing. I'm not an engineer, never worked in a manufacturing company. What we're good at is linking education and business and engineering together. So I don't have any really exciting bits of kit. Mark's got a very exciting, very big piece of kit, which we can use to inspire young people. So that was sort of, it was like, right, well, we need to look at what we can do together. So we dabbled probably for the first 3 or 4 years. Did some events together, but sort of really sat down and thought formally that, well, our objective is to inspire young people, get them interested in engineering, understanding, as the strapline for Vulcan says, it's honouring the past, inspiring the future. And that's how we use Vulcan. So young people to understand just what an amazing feat of engineering it was in its day and still is to some extent. And then sort of inspiring them to think about, well, they could be part of the next generation of innovative engineered products coming out of the UK. So that's sort of where it all started.
Do you think having the Vulcan, actually physically having the Vulcan there, is an important thing really to sort of inspire the younger generation?
Absolutely. You can't fail to be inspired when you see it, can you? You stand underneath it. Some of the comments by young people when we've, because they don't quite know what they're expecting. Some of them might have been on an airplane on the holidays. They might have watched a movie with a Spitfire in it or whatever. They don't really understand what they're going to see when, and some of the, we've had wow. Some young people will say, wow, it's big, isn't it? It's big. And I thought once we get them inside as well to understand, and see how the crew, the pilot and co-pilot and crew, sort of the space that they had to work in and the amount of engineering and technology in there, it's like they can't fail to be blown away. I remember one little lad saying, wow, best day of my life, this, when he came out the aircraft. It's that wow moment, but then it's so how does it get off the ground? How does it fly? Why has it got triangular wings? You start to generate that interest and that buzz around it. You start to hopefully plant a seed that, this is something. I might have thought of being a pilot, but I didn't know I could do all these other jobs in aviation or in engineering.
Yeah, inspiring these young people into these STEM-related roles, it's vitally important. There's a report from just in 2022, so a year and a bit ago. It's an engineering skills need now and into the future report, and that showed that there's an increasing shortage of skilled engineers in the UK. And I think the number was 178,000, and with an estimated 20% of the workforce due to retire by 2030. So that 178,000 just gets deeper. So through our STEM education program, inspiring young people to take up the careers in engineering and such, it's going to plug that skills shortage. Robert, Dr. Robert Plemon, that is, used to say the Vulcan is an awesome sight, once seen, never forgotten, and he's not wrong. The Vulcan is one of the best British designs of all times, and Robert's vision was that the Vulcan would be used to stimulate young people into thinking about design and engineering as a career. And we know XH558 inspires people. Martin, you will have seen firsthand two of our own volunteers, Sam Scrimshaw and Connor Sykes, being inspired by it. These two guys, both of them joined the engineering team at Vulcan to the Sky at a young age, and both have gone on now to be working for BAE Systems. So, we've seen it firsthand how that aircraft can have an impact.
I think for me, Vulcan had its purpose when it was designed. It had a purpose. It was our nuclear deterrent. Now, for me, it's got a new purpose, which is to sort of inspire these young people, your Connors, your people like that. But it's not just about those. They're not all going to go into aviation careers. But if they come away thinking about, what they could do, what that career could be in the future, that for me is just as powerful as those who actually go into aviation industry. And particularly for girls and young people from minority communities, we have to attract more of those. And we've had a real good mix of young people. We've had as many girls in the cockpit as we've had lads, but they're just as inspired. And there is a shortage of engineers. There's definitely a shortage of female engineers. I think it's about 16% of all qualified engineers are female.
Just over the period of time that you've been together, how many schools, and if you can give us an idea, how many children have you worked with over the years, do you think?
My crude calculations, I reckon we've supported about 19,500 young people over the last 3 years at different levels. Some it's been, come and see and get hands-on. Some we work with the University Technical College in Doncaster, so we do long-term project work with them. Others, it's been a half-day visit. Others, Vulcan comes to some of the big events we run and reaches a lot of young people. So about 19,500. You're probably talking across South Yorkshire, probably about a couple of hundred schools there that young people have come from. Interesting that we're now starting to, and this is strategic, we're starting to reach a little bit further. So we've gone reaching out into West Yorkshire, Humberside, towards the south of South Yorkshire. So, which again is, that vision is to, you don't have to be living in South Yorkshire to be inspired by XH558. You can be anywhere in the world to come to that. So, we are extending the reach. And before that, I guess, Mark, there's been thousands more who've experienced Vulcan in the past.
Yeah, there were days where we'd have hangar visits where children would come along and sit underneath what would be really interested in, and I'm not sure it's even possible to do, was to get one of those children that have seen her over the years and see where they're at now. And see if, we know about two on our engineering team because we work closely with them, but how many people has that aircraft inspired into what roles? And that'd be really interesting to see. And I'm not sure it's possible to do, but I think we've definitely inspired some children into careers and roles.
I think that'd be a good thing to do. Yeah, it'd be like that TV program, wouldn't it? Where they did them where they were at school, and then 20, 30 years later,
every 7 years.
Yeah, it'd be good. It'd be good. That one. It'd be a good podcast. That as well. Yeah. Put that down.
Right, we'll work on that one, Martin. We'll work on that one. I'm sure some of the students at UTC, will be if we can track them for sure. And some of the we're doing competitions now with primary school children. From age 5 upwards. So, and some of them are 10 years away from entering the labour market, but it's giving them that awareness of what jobs and careers they could do.
I think if you rewind back to we were talking about the reactions that we get from these young children as they come out of the cockpit, and you said, John, best day of my life, and they're bouncing. Those sort of feelings that you get at that young age, they're going to stick with you, and that will inspire you to do other things. I think my most memorable conversation or thought from a child after seeing the aircraft was John would get the children to say out loud what they thought of their day and what they thought of the Vulcan. And one of them actually described her as pretty. And, we often know that our supporters who have seen the aircraft fly and put on magnificent displays will say it's a beautiful aircraft. But when the aircraft's standing there on the ground, static, and this young child has seen it for the first time, even that child said, pretty, which is quite impressive. So it has an impact on people.
The Vulcan effect.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. So what do you think are the most important facts and messages that you try to get across during these sessions with the young adults and the young and the children?
I'm not sure it's so much about bombarding with facts and details about the aircraft and everything. It's more about, you talk to them about the workings of the aircraft and some key areas, and you do it in a suitable way for their age. So, for example, when you get really young people, John and the team get them to make paper aeroplanes, which sounds really basic. What you're doing is you get them to design how that paper aeroplane will be. They throw it, so they're testing it, and they'll then bring it back to the table and they'll improve it. So they, design, testing, improving, which are processes that design teams and engineers actually follow. So it's getting that into their mindset. And then for older groups, you kind of go through that same process, design, test, improve, but on a bigger scale. So Doncaster UTC, who we've been working with, they've actually designed wind tunnels and built them. They did a redesigning of the wing of the Vulcan with modern day materials. And just last week at the North Star Science School, they showed off their design that explained how the control yoke of the Vulcan works. They actually had it there and you could play with it and it would move the rudders and the elevons. So let's say it's not about throwing the facts that the Vulcan could fly at this speed and was built in this year so much. It's more about getting that process into the children. So yes, the aircraft's magnificent and beautiful, but you're getting the STEM subjects into their mindset at a young age.
And again, it's about seeing that passion. Those students last week, they were passionate. They were teaching other students, younger students, about what they'd learnt, not just about Vulcan, but about flight, etc. They even got to explain what they'd done to Professor Brian Cox last week, which was quite awesome for him. So he spent the day with us. So, and that's an experience in its own right. Without Vulcan, they would never have had that opportunity. So I think, we do teach them some of the science, but, because a lot of these young people have been on an airplane, they won't have ever thought how that airplane gets off the ground, how it flies. So we do some basics around theory of flight. Then they test. They're building their paper aeroplanes, they're testing them out. How do you keep it in the air? How do you get it to go further? And a lot of it's about having fun as well. You learn, in my opinion, you learn when you're having fun. If it's a boring, dry subject, you ain't learning. You're probably switched off. You cannot fail to have fun when you're around Vulcan. So it serves a number of purposes, I think, really.
Brilliant. And obviously you're getting a good response from these guys. Like you say, if you're having a bit of fun as well, you've got a lot of interaction going on there, obviously.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
The questions they'll ask, and again, of some of the engineers and some of the volunteers, their knowledge is phenomenal. And it's not, they're learning about aviation, learning about theory of flight, they're learning about maths, they're learning about history. They won't have thought about, we don't major on the original purpose of the Vulcan, but it's part of our history. It's something that young people should be aware of, and the fact that unfortunately that's not something we have to do anymore. We use it to teach them, and this was one of Robert's visions, I think, was, it was a gas guzzler. It wasn't environmentally friendly by any stretch of the imagination. It's now, how do we address that? What projects can we come up with? How can we use Vulcan to understand the negative impacts, and how do we turn that into positives, thinking about green technologies, sustainability. So again, we've had some of the students designing, some of the students this year designing a new controller for the aircraft, but thinking about the materials they use, the resources they use, how they source them, what are the best materials to use, which are the most sustainable materials. So again, getting to think creatively and think outside the box. So yeah, it's using those firm foundations to inspire them to think about future technologies as well, which I think is quite an important element of what we're doing. We've all got to think about that going forward. And again, whether they go into aviation or, every job is going to have an element of green technology and sustainability going forward.
So from all the people that the young people that you've had coming on your sessions, what do you think is the best idea that's come from these people who have taken part in the education sessions that you've provided?
I think on one of the sessions I heard, they were talking about AI or power of the mind to control the aircraft. Now that was something completely outside of the box, but that's where I guess future and technology is heading, and maybe one day that will be a thing.
Well, that's pretty much happening in modern day fighters anyway, isn't it? When you look at the Euro fighters and other jets like that at the moment, the F-35s, they've got basically wherever the pilot looks is where the aircraft goes, isn't it?
It's amazing, yeah. And then drones and unmanned aerial vehicles are the future of aviation, these children are obviously in that mindset. They're there with future technologies already. They're on their iPhones and they get to see all that firsthand and probably quicker at thinking of those things than certainly me.
Yeah. John, what were you going to say?
I think I'd struggle to find one. I think there's lots of different innovative ideas they've come up with of all ages. Part of what we do is we set them projects, we set them challenges. They've varied from sort of we've got some spare wingtips. How do we display them? How do we make a sculpture out of them? To, how do we make an environmentally friendly ejector seats? And there's so many. There's kids that you think, well, they're not going to even be able to get their heads around that. But when they come back with their ideas, you just get blown away by what they come up with. So I can't pick one in particular. If you go to the younger ones, we've had them designing superheroes, really. Vulcan, can't call them Vulcan, because I think Marvel got there first with that one. But they come up with all, and again, ideas about green superheroes using Vulcan as the model. So there's hundreds. There's literally hundreds of ideas. But that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to stimulate that interest and excitement.
So getting them to look back to the future and think about global connectivity, obviously it's hugely important because of the green issues. I'm taking it green technology is a subject that you cover within the sessions that you provide. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's an interesting one because there isn't really a subject, green technology. It reads into everything now. But what we try to do is them to think about, the negative impacts and then think about how they could green that in the future. So yes, it's a big part of what we do. It's not a subject. It's not like maths. It's not a subject you can teach. It's such a wide, broad area. What is green technology? But yeah, it's woven into everything we do. It's sort of thinking about that and that future impact.
I would imagine probably one of the biggest areas of the green technology was probably to do with the engines and the amount of fuel consumed, etc.
Absolutely. And the young people, if you talk about being environmentally friendly, they think about recycling. They think about waste, plastic waste. They don't think necessarily about fuels and stuff like that. They don't about the stuff they're using every day.
I mean, just on the green technology, obviously the aerospace industry is massively focusing on greener flying and so on. So yes, it's touched on in all the discussions we had with the children, but without a massively into types of fuel and so on. It's just an overarching that aerospace needs to be greener. It's a consideration for everyone that's ever going into that career.
I suppose that goes across the board though, isn't it? Because obviously the whole thing behind this, as what's coming across to me anyway, is it's not just about avionic engineering, it's about engineering in general, because this can go anywhere really, can't it, with the electronics, the mechanics, the airframes, even down to the clothes you wear, etc., really, isn't it? So moving forward, what's the next partnership then? What plans do you have in place for 2025? Can you give us any ideas, or is it hush hush?
No, it's not a shush at all, is it, Mark? We want to shout it from the rooftops, really. So
No, the education is exciting. Yeah, there's nothing hush hush. John and his team work well in advance for the school years and constantly come up with new ideas and things to promote. And our education has grown constantly, hasn't it, John?
Yeah. So to give you some idea of the stuff coming up this next 12 months, Mark, so we're doing some of the same, some of the stuff that worked really well. We've just developed a primary school flying futures day. So we're taking 10 different aviation activities into primary schools. Some of them we touched on, around the theory of flights, getting them to make paper airplanes, balloons, kite, you name it. If it flies, they're doing an activity on it. Launching rockets, that's always a favourite. But the idea is we'll go in, we might do the whole school in a day, might be doing 500 kids, we might be doing a year group, but the children get half an hour on 6 or 8 different subjects. So they get to make models, they get to test them out, they get to fly them. We use lots of Vulcan volunteers for that. So Connor was out on the last one. Carolyn and Nikki are regulars with us, so it's all about just getting the kids enthused and inspired. And we've done a couple so far. We've had fantastic feedback on those. So we've got 10 of those coming up across the year. We've got 2 big events, one of which we've just done, which is the North Star Science School we mentioned earlier. So that was the UTC students teaching younger students. So they were in front of 550 young people last week, sort of 12 to 14-year-olds. So this was 15, 16-year-olds sort of working on a Vulcan-inspired project. We've got a big event we do every year called Get Up to Speed with STEM at Magna in March, which Vulcan will be at and are sponsors of as well. So we've got 5,500 kids there. So that's quite a big day, or 2 days actually. We've spread it to 2 days. So we've got a primary school and students with special education needs, so they get the opportunity to see and hear about Vulcan as well, and a secondary school day. We've got quite a few projects going on with the University Technical College in Doncaster, hoping to expand that to other UTCs, including just started to look at supporting T-level, technical level qualifications. So providing some, and these are students who picked engineering as their subject to study. So they'll get an opportunity to do, so like Connor and others, get some work experience opportunity, get to do some specific projects around the aircraft, including sort of digitizing there's some amazing, manuals and charts and stuff for Vulcan, but you can't sort of put them in your pocket, like you can with your mobile phone. You've got to have a big lorry to carry around in. So they're going to look at digitizing those. So that's coming up. We're launching our Getting the Spirit competition again. So primary and secondary school kids can design superheroes or come up with sort of stories about Vulcan and its history. We're just about to give the University of Sheffield students a wingtip, which Mark's kindly agreed to. And they're going to work on designing some sort of sculpture to showcase that, which we'll exhibit at Get Up to Speed in March. So lots and lots going on. But I'll let you just talk about the really big one coming up, Mark, in terms of Skill Street. You want to say a bit about that?
This is a brand new concept that's opening in Rotherham, where it'll be, as it says on the tin, I guess, is a street, and there's lots of different skill sets within there. So each business, like Vulcan to the Sky, would go in, they'll have a 40 by 40 space, for an example, and we'll put up what we do in our education to try and inspire all the young children that go through this building into these roles. I know there's other companies involved. Can we name any of them, John?
Yeah. We've got companies like Eon, Esh Construction, NHS, who are coming in there, a company called Gripple in Sheffield Engineering. So I've got other engineering companies in there. So Vulcan will sit in there alongside these other inspirational organisations. Again, it's about inspiring primary school through to university age young people, getting hands-on, interactive. So that moves us from occasional days to every day of the year, basically. It's based on the theme park, Gulliver's Valley theme park in Rotherham. So every visitor to Gulliver's will have the opportunity to sort of experience Skill Street and not see Vulcan itself up close, but learn about it and do some hands-on activities with the team there.
Yeah, and so this is opening in spring, and is it some 16,000 children will be passing through there each year? So it'll massively broaden what we do for our education, but it's also good for engineering as a whole that, that many children going through. Again, it's going to fill that skills gap that we've got in engineering.
So we've got big plans.
I was just going to say, it sounds like you've got a very busy and a very exciting year ahead of you, fellas.
Yes, definitely.
So one last thing before we go, because it seems like you're doing an absolutely great job, but I'm sure you could probably welcome some new ideas. How do you think that enthusiasts of XH558 could actually help support the education program?
If anyone's listening, parents, guardians, grandparents, or teachers, they want to know more about our education program and think that their children's school would like to be involved, then please contact us. If they go to vulcantothesky.org, scroll to the bottom of the page and you'll see our email contact, and then we can put them in touch with WorkWise and we'll have a discussion on how they can find out more.
Yeah, we can't do a lot of what we do without amazing people who support us, whether it's through volunteering, through donations to the education program. We've got some fantastic all the volunteers don't have to have worked on Vulcan. We've got some great engineers. We've got people who are passionate about the aircraft, but we've got people from all different walks and backgrounds. There's always a place for, if it's the primary school road shows, guarantee a fun day. It's just to support young people. I'm not an engineer. I know enough to be able to go into a primary school and inspire a young person about aviation and flight and using XH558 as that inspirational tool, really, I suppose. So, there's lots of ways people can get involved. And as Mark says, just spreading the word. If you've got kids, grandkids, family in primary schools, teachers, students, whatever, and they're interested in sort of having a visit from Vulcan or coming to one of the big events we've done, help us spread the word.
Fantastic. Gents, been great speaking to you. Thanks very much for giving us your time. And we look forward to an exciting year with you next year. We'll have a catch up with you, no doubt, on the next season, see where we are. But in the meantime, take care of yourselves. And again, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Martin.
Thanks, Martin. Cheers.
That's all for today's episode of Into the Sky. We hope you've enjoyed soaring through the legacy of XH558 with us. Your support helps keep the story of the Vulcan alive, and if you'd like to support the Trust a little more or find out more about what is happening, why not visit our website, vulcantothesky.org. There you can learn more about our mission, and here you can also make a donation if you wish. You can follow us on social media for behind-the-scenes content and updates. And sharing this podcast with fellow aviation enthusiasts is another great way of supporting the Trust and helping keep this legacy alive. Every contribution to preserve this iconic aircraft for generations to come is greatly appreciated. Thank you again for listening. Until next time, keep your ears tuned into the sky.